Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year's from the Glad Chad Podcast. I'm Jordan Pacheco.
And I'm Rudy Carlos.
How's 2020 treating you so far?
2020, well, it's in the future sometimes, so...
That's
Has
right.
it happened yet?
Oh, no, we've let the cat out of the bag. Turns out we were recording this actually on the eve of New Year's Eve. Eveception.
But with the magic of editing, you're going to be experiencing...
For instance, I'm going to put one of those party sound effects, like the kazoo things, right here for Happy New Year's, right?
Okay,
3, 2, 1. Happy New Year! Yeah! Woo! Edited. So Gunshots, man. How was your Christmas? You know, I didn't realize this, but I wish you a Merry Christmas at some point. But Merry Christmas, Rudy.
Thank you.
Merry belated Christmas.
Merry Christmas. It's still Christmas, people.
Oh, it is. It's still the inside the octave of Christmas.
Yep.
It's nice. I was thinking about this. It's always nice when the Sunday in the octave of Christmas falls a couple days after Christmas, rather than having them just like right on top of each other, as you get. Because it's December 25th, so it changes its dates. So you can have Christmas on a Saturday, and then Sunday. Yeah, don't give me that look, Rudy.
Sorry, no, I'm not good at math, so I was trying to figure that out.
It's okay. It's a good thing you're pretty. Oh no, I know, right? Glad Trads took a whole new return. How was your Christmas? What did you do?
Oh, Christmas was great. I went over to my mom's house. She lives in Hemet, so went out there, and it was nice and cold. Mm-hmm. Spent some time with her and my stepdad, and who else was there? Ashley came, and my mother-in-law as well. And then afterwards, a couple of days later, we did Christmas at their house.
This was
pretty good.
This was the first Christmas I wasn't at home, meaning Colorado.
Wow, really?
I was at Jen's family. I was at Jen's house, her immediate house, with her immediate family. First time I ever met her brothers, by the way. All three of them in the same room. I met one before.
She has brothers?
She has 3 brothers in total.
That's a mistake.
It is a mistake until you realize that we're brothers now. So
just kidding. That's a reference to something. But
what's it? Okay.
Never mind.
So we did that, and then I also went to her extended families. They have a house. They're based more out of Santa Clarita. And so we went to kind of a big Christmas party over there, and we got to do a Secret Santa thing. And you can't see this, listener, but if you look over there, Rudy, you see that plateware over there?
Oh.
Yeah, that's right. I Secret Santa'd that. There's like an exchange kind of game that they play, and nice. we came out on top. There's also a waffle maker that we got. So we lucked out. We made out like a bandit, dude.
I just remember too. We did the Christmas party at our.
That's right. Yeah.
One of the parishioners has this really amazing house, and they're so kind, mm-hmm. and they just had all of the young adults together, and we did like a Secret Santa gift exchange.
Yeah. And
I really made out like a bandit because I had put that, they ask you on this little sheet, like, oh, list 5 things you like and 3 things you don't like. Uh-huh. And one thing that's on your list that is, maybe you did get or you haven't gotten. And I wanted the Thomas Aquinas in 50 Pages book
Very
by
specific.
Taylor Marshall.
Uh-huh.
And it just so happened to be that the person who got me got the book for me in the exchange. So
didn't even know.
It was great.
That's awesome. And then you went to midnight mass at St. Vitus.
Oh man, it was incredible. Man. It was just the most beautiful. It was the first traditional Latin mass, midnight mass that I'd gone to.
No way.
And I was just blown away. I mean, I started thinking about it. And I was just reminiscing on that night because it was just so... This whole season has been really joy-filled. Mm-hmm. It was the first Christmas that I've just been like super, super happy and in tune with what it's all about. Jesus is the reason for the season. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking, like we're a growing community. We talked about that in the first episode. And so our church still is a little bit too small to accommodate all of the massive growth that we've had over this year, right? And so we have Tent Cathedral. We've had it a couple of times now, and just the amount of work that went into making it look like an adequate space. But I was thinking, this is what I was alluding to in the beginning when I started talking about this, is I was thinking, this Tent Cathedral, it's a wholly inadequate place for us to have a mass, you think about the Mass and you think about, a beautiful cathedral, and we'll get there. I believe it.
Oh yeah.
But I was reminiscing on how it was inadequate to contain the holy sacrifice of the Mass. And then I started thinking, it's almost like the nativity scene. Jesus is born into an inadequate place. He's born in a manger because there wasn't any room for him.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in this tent, because that's the card that we have right now. But later on, we're going to be in a cathedral or something. Mm-hmm. I believe it. I think so.
One thing to keep in mind, I think, on that train is that Europe's a perfect example of this, where you have the faith has been so gutted that you have beautiful cathedrals that have stood the test of time and will stand the test of time, but they're empty. Mm-hmm. It's another empty church. And so what you do want at the end of the day is obviously the aesthetics are important because they point us towards God. But, it's also kind of funny because I think it's very reminiscent, not just of Jesus' nativity, but also of the early days of Christianity. We were having Mass in catacombs. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not an adequate place. And it wasn't just because of our tying to the saints. That was a spiritual reason, but also because that's the only place where Christians can congregate. This is a place that is wholly inadequate to have the Mass, the holy sacrifice of the Mass. But yet, because it is the moment where heaven and earth meet, it is the perfect place for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Our parish is, the church building itself is small, and we're always pouring out every single Sunday. But, it's like, despite not having the most conventional of places for the Mass, we had more seating. Mm-hmm. And I told our priest before, I said, this takes care of our population problem. And he kind of hard. But they did very wonderful. They put new altar rails out there. Mm-hmm. There was seating for everyone, place to kneel. They put heaters up so people could stay warm. And one of my favorite aspects was, I'm a member of the choir, and we have a very big and very wonderful sounding choir, and it's greatly in large part to our choir master, who's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. But because of the nature of seating in St. Vitus, we aren't actually we don't have a choir loft. We're not even in the church, actually. We're in the church, but we're behind the altar in the choir room. And we have built a microphone system that essentially projects us out to the congregation. So because we could kind of build up the Mass at Christmas in a different way, the choir was in the very back of the Tent Cathedral. Mm-hmm. And we sang with microphones, but we also were able to be present at the Mass. And that changed our sound, and also I think a lot of our esprit de corps, if you will, because we're not just looking at the Mass through a screen. Mm-hmm. and kind of queuing up what our section is, but this is what actual participation looks like. Like, we're actually fully engaged in the rich liturgical history and the rich liturgy that's taking place right in front of us. So I think on all accounts, it was probably the most beautiful Christmas Mass I've ever been to.
Same.
Because it was ours, and all glory to God, and special thanks to the fraternity and to our priests and everybody who really, really helped welcome the King of Kings in the best way possible.
The people who volunteered to set up the tent, mm-hmm. and people who created the kneelers and stuff.
Yeah. And I'm gonna, awesome. When we do have our cathedral, I'm gonna tell you that we can't ever forget our roots. That everyone like banding together and making the best out of our little startup parishes that we can, because it only grows from here.
Yeah,
and that's exciting. By the way, would you rather have a tent cathedral or a crystal cathedral?
Like the one in the OC?
Like the one in the OC?
The literal?
Like the literal crystal cathedral.
As is, I can't modify it?
You can't modify it, my dude.
I'd take a tent.
Yeah, me too.
Because the crystal cathedral looks like a airport lounge.
We have to have a topic on architecture one day.
Yeah.
Because, oof. I remember when the diocese bought that off of, I think it was an evangelical church before, like a mega church.
It's swapped hands a couple times. Mm-hmm. In the past. But
they should give it to the fraternity.
It's a big waste of money.
Yeah, I was gonna say even the fraternity would be like, listen, we can't turn this into we can't do this, guys.
Yeah, it's the kind of place you purchase on a deal and then you flip it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Give it to they should give it to the other big evangelicals. They'll take it, and then it'll be done in 2 years.
Joel Olstein, if you're listening,
Oh, that's right.
we could put you in contact with the OC diocese.
Can you imagine Joel Olstein sitting down with a bishop or like the fraternity? Can you imagine that? Gosh, I'd pay money to see that. How should our music be? Well, anyway, so it is, the new year is almost upon us as we sit here. By the time this video is released, the new year is upon us. And I like 2020 is going to be a big year for both of us. Mm-hmm. It's going to be one of the biggest years, importantly, in all aspects of our life.
Yep.
You realize that not only is it just fun to say, but 2020 is the year that both of us get married to our fiancés, isn't it?
Yeah.
You in June and me in August. Does that sound about right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh, ain't that something?
It's going to be real fun.
It's going to be real fun. I mean,
party season.
2020 is going to be a big year. It's a big year across the world. It's going to be a big year in our lives, certainly. I mean, the most important decisions. This was the first year that you witnessed a Latin Mass for Christmas midnight. Mm-hmm. And this was the first year for me that I witnessed it in a parish that's concretely ours, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So it's made me, and also I think that this is the first year for me that I've really started coming into my identity first and foremost as a Catholic, which I'd always prized before, very importantly, but to discover the richness of the liturgical history and of tradition and music and life, just cultural and parish life in a whole brand new way. Having a church that's concretely like our place is important for that. And also just being so attached to the different outlets that have given us access to our heritage is important. So for me this year, I want to stretch out my hand, and I want God to lead me into the places where I don't want to go, as it says towards the end of Gospel of John. I want God to take me deeper into my Catholic faith. Mm-hmm. And I want to do so radically, because I'm going to be a husband, and that's a sacrament into and of itself. I want my career, the way that I earn money for my family, I want that to lead me into new directions. I want to give more to God in all aspects of my life. I want to give my marriage to God. I want to give my life and my livelihood to God, and like actually do it, not just be passive about it. And, I think that for a lot of our listeners, I'm sure this is something that they're being called to do as well. But a lot of times it's like, you need a jumping off point. Like, when is the day you're going to really cross the Tiber and then recross it in Latin or something like that? And I think this might be the year. I think this year is a year of risus et bellum. This is going to be a year across the church for laughter and war. And there's going to be a lot of war. I think everyone understands that. So it's time for your own lives and for everyone's own spiritual awakening to have a little bit of laughter in there too. Like the richness of the faith to come alive, not just in our struggles, but also in our triumphs.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of things are being aligned for the Catholic laity to be, to wake up and realize that they're, in the middle of nowhere, and it's time for you to really take a look at where you are and figure out, where you're going to go. And I think it's the perfect year for us to go into tradition. I think 2019 was the year for me to do that.
Yeah.
And now that I've lived pretty much a whole year through, jumping into the waters. The water's fine, guys. It's wonderful.
Oh, it's wonderful. Isn't
It feels great. Come on in. The waters of tradition are amazing. And if you're just on the fence, you're thinking about it, you're going to mass and, you're seeing all kinds of liturgical abuse, your heart's not at peace, you sit through another boomer homily and just like all kinds of different things. Like find a fraternity parish, find a Latin Mass, find a Byzantine Rite church, that's Catholic. Do everything you can, even if it's inconvenient for you, just do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Offer that up too, and do yourself a favor. This year is the year of laughter and war.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already experiencing the war. You hear us on Mad Trads all the time. There's plenty of war, but there's also plenty of risus in there. Mm-hmm. Plenty of opportunities to laugh. I mean, just experiencing that Mass during the Christmas midnight Mass, that was just, my heart was going to explode. It was incredible.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, getting together with the whole parish. I mean, everybody had a smile on their face. It's like 1:30 in the morning. Everybody's laughing, having coffee and talking to each other. One of our friends, there was like a wall right next to another wall, and she dropped her phone in there, and the priest came over and helped fish it out with, like, because he's like amazing and just really intelligent. He's like, I got this, guys. It's just like those small moments. Those I'll never forget. I'll never forget those small moments. Because for me they were moments of peace, moments of joy. And you could have that too in 2020.
We talk about how when Christ comes into the world, he doesn't come as a king. He comes as poorest of the poor. Mm-hmm. He comes, it's not, it's obviously not freezing in the manger, but it's also not civilizations where you keep the animals. So, he comes in a situation that's not normal. And he comes in a situation that isn't ideal, again, for the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, God, who is Alpha and Omega, is the beginning and the end, who is the way, the truth, and the life.
He comes in as a baby, people. He doesn't come in as a fully grown man, which is what people expected,
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
He comes in as the most vulnerable thing, a child, a human child, human and divine, of course. But
I think about, and I hope, I don't know anybody there who had this, but I know that there is, because, Christmas and Easter are the times when Catholics who don't come to Mass. And I know that out there, because there are a lot of faces I'd never seen before at our church. And it's not just the fact that all the Masses are getting together. There are a lot of people who this is the closest Mass for them. And maybe they walked into it and didn't know that it was a Tridentine Mass, as one sometimes does. Maybe they knew and hadn't been forever, or maybe they'd been hostile and they were just curious or something. But I know that night moved so many things so deeply. And what I desire, what I hope, what I pray for is that the joy and the richness that Christ gives us in the holy sacrifice of the Mass really radically touches people in that way that only God can, especially on a night like Christmas. I mean, for not being inside a church proper, all the smells and bells were there. Mm-hmm. For not being inside a church proper, seldom have I ever felt more like, and it's consistent. This is the nice thing about the Mass, is that it's consistently perfect sacrifice offered to God. Again, this is the year where you have to get uncomfortable. There's no other way of saying it. There are a lot of people, we see them online, we know them, we associate with them, who go, tradition's really nice and good, and I'm moving that way, I'm moving that direction. But listen, the nearest Latin Mass is an hour away. Friends, how much would you drive for the sake of your soul? Is what the question is. If you're going to a Mass and it's not feeding you, if you really feel like you are sinning because you just can't stand it, if you're not getting closer to God, but you're getting farther to God, and we've seen plenty of that. I read there was a very, very good article on 1 Peter 5, and it was an overview kind of article. It was a hypothetical, and it was the sorts of people at church that you see. And you go from the guy who grew up Catholic and has fallen away from it, and he kind of wants to get back in, but he just can't stand the homily. So what does he do? He goes out to the bathroom and he checks his phone and he just kind of waits for Father's geriatrics to be over. There's the woman who is young, she's college, she's early adult, and she starts veiling. And she can't accept the real presence inside this scenario because she doesn't feel like she's worthy. She also doesn't feel like she's seen something that's giving proper honor to God. And so logically she might be in a different place, but her heart's not there, and it can't be there because she's being blocked from her heritage. And it goes on down the list of all these kind of different archetypes and of people that you might see at your regular Mass. And I'm saying it's time to stop. So we have a couple of New Year's resolutions. I know I do. And for those who are kind of sitting on the fence, for those who are taking convenience over the sake of their souls and the sake of their family's souls, it's not saying that it's a mortal sin to go to the Novus Ordo. Obviously, it isn't. It still gives glory and honor to God. But if we're going to talk about reclaiming authentic Catholic heritage, and you really want to be serious about it, you don't just want to be one of the LARPers online, it's time to get uncomfortable. It's time to learn that driving an hour for Mass is exactly what your ancestors did. It was not easy or convenient for them to go down to the catacombs and risk coming back up and being hauled off by Roman guards and being crucified or thrown in lions, which, by the way, happened. It wasn't like catacombs magically were never raided, by the way. It wasn't convenient or easy for the story of that Chinese martyr, that young girl who, after the communists came and destroyed the church, all the Eucharists were on the floor, and every night the priest observed that she would go and she would receive one Eucharist at a time on the tongue until the very last one was consumed and the soldiers found her and killed her. That wasn't convenient. It's not convenient for the history of martyrdom in the Americas for these priests to come on fire with the Holy Spirit, to literally tear down temples to pagan gods and false gods and demons and say, we're going to build up brick by brick the true God's church. We're going to offer the sacrifice of the Mass, not for the strongest of society, but for everybody. You know, for us men and for all salvation. I mean, this is the truth of truths. And so, yeah, this is a year of laughter and war, and it's time. It's time to get a little dirty.
I'm glad you brought up the concept of sacrifice. One of the first conversations that I had with one of the priests at the fraternity parish that we go to was me kind of explaining to him, like, hey, I'm on the fence. I'm searching. I really need tradition. I really need orthodoxy. I'm losing my mind. And he was explaining to me, you know, a lot of people will come from different parishes, you know, and much to the chagrin of certain priests, because they lose parishioners like crazy. And he was telling me also that a lot of people don't come to tradition because they think it's extra steps. And they don't, you know, they never make an effort to find tradition, because they'll say things like, oh, well, the Mass is in Latin, you know, I'm not getting anything out of it, I don't understand it, et cetera, et cetera. And he brought up that concept to me that we just spoke of sacrifice. He says, you know, to come here, it's a sacrifice for a lot of people. But that's a worthy thing. It's a worthy thing for you to be searching. It's a worthy thing for you to go to the Latin Mass, even though it's 2 hours away. There's actually people who drive more than 2 hours.
Yeah.
And our pastor actually has a story of you know, his youth living in Australia and traveling literally the whole day to get to the traditional Latin Mass. Not only that, but Bishop Athanasius Schneider, in his book, while he describes his childhood, he would spend a whole day traveling just to get to Mass. And yes, it is a sacrifice, but it doesn't go unnoticed. And also, you do get something out of it. Yeah. You do get a lot of... Obviously, the sacrifice of the Mass isn't just for you to get, you know, some sort of cheap thrill or anything like that. The sacrifice of the Mass is for the people, but also it's not just exclusively just for your own entertainment or whatever, or participation. It's more than that. It's the sacrifice of Christ at Calvary, you know, and that's just incredible. You know, like why wouldn't you want to travel for that, you know, just to really touch into that reality that you probably aren't getting at your Novus Ordo parish, you know, where, you know, it's all novelty. You know, I'm thinking about this now. One of the things that traditionalists get critiqued for a lot is because, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, well, all of that stuff is just novelty. Oh, you know, the Mass is in Latin, the vestments are different, they're more elegant, that's novelty. But they never look at, you know, what's going on in the Novus Ordo, where it's like, you literally have like you have the choir front and center. Gosh. Yeah. And that's like the key to the Mass. It's just like all of these different novelty and
invention. You know, I was at Los Angeles has some of the most beautiful churches in the States. And I think certainly actually the most beautiful churches in the West. Because there's a complete history here that allows that. The Spanish came, you know what I mean? Just a whole thing.
A lot of wealth here too.
A lot wealthier, and Catholics who have been blessed with such a thing are good when they pump it back to the church a little bit. And so one thing is I was at Blessed Sacrament, which is the resident Jesuit parish here in Los Angeles. It's a beautiful church. It's right in the heart of Hollywood.
But I have to say, yikes.
Yeah, yikes! Days without Jesuit tricks.
They had a rainbow flag on their altar.
Did they really? Oh, that was the one. Oh, yeah. Previously on Mad Trads. So it didn't have it this time. It's a beautiful church.
It is beautiful.
It is absolutely stunning. And one thing about it is this, that they have a beautiful choir loft. It's a beautiful choir loft. It's a beautiful organ. And again, the aesthetics are good because if they point us to God. Mm-hmm. And what's funny is that you don't have to be a Catholic or even a Christian to understand immediately what these things evoke. I work in Hollywood, so just ask me. A lot of very, very secular left people understand what Gregorian chant, and anytime they need a church, they always go to, there's Blessed Sacrament, there's St. Charles Borromeo, I mean, all the sorts. But my point being is this, it's a beautiful choir loft. And churches, by the way, are designed not just to be aesthetically pleasing, but also to be sound-wise pragmatic. The priest projects the Mass, and the choir projects where we are in the Mass. So very important things. But what we've done nowadays is always without fail, oftentimes to the right or the left of the altar, there's a shorter piano put over. And it now houses a small choir that does your favorite hits from the 70s. And I don't want to be so negative on, not in this episode at least, on the Novus Ordo always, because one thing about it that kept me in where I was and prevented my complete flight to tradition early on was because the priest I had during my formative high school years was so solid. And he was the first priest I ever looked up to. And when I said father, I meant 100%. Mm-hmm. And that helped because I know that there's a lot of priests and a lot of parishioners out there who are like that.
Yep.
The Latin Mass is 2 hours away and you have a 3-year-old. And yeah, it's like, it's nice, well and good, but there are, on the flip side, how many stories do we read now where there are these priests who are coming in and the parishioners ask them, hey, Father, would you ever mind just doing like a low Latin Mass? Or we had a friend who the other day said, he talked to this priest who said, I've just downloaded all the rubrics online for the Tridentine Mass and I'm learning it. And it's going to take a while, and then it's not in my comfort zone. He's not a fraternity priest, by the way. And that's what's happening. It's not just a fraternity that's growing. It's diocesan Latin Masses. And and even when the Latin Mass isn't there, this priest that my friend talked to, he had that homily. You know what he did? He went, he said, I predict that in 10 to 20 years, Mass is going to look like this. And he went right in front of the altar, and he turned his back to the people. And he said, this is how the priest is going to be in 10 to 20 years.
Maybe this is the year, 2020 is the year, where you're in a diocesan parish and you ask the pastor, will you give us a Latin Mass? Mm-hmm. Will you at least add it? People are hungry for this.
And you know what? It's like, and that is, so the Latin Mass, of course, is such a fish out of water from the New Rite. That takes so much study and practice. Baby steps are good because baby steps point us in the right direction, Father, I've been looking, and I think that communion on the tongue is the most sense. Historically, spiritually, theologically, it is so important for me. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to know what your stance on it. Father, altar rails make so much sense. Here we are in this beautiful church and we don't use our altar rails. And not only are they speedy, it's not like these people didn't know what they were doing, if you're worried about that, but I think it changes the whole tone of things. Father, I know you know me because you're a priest who's just gone out of seminary. We can't stand a Marty Hagen piece. If I have to do Sing to the Mountain, Sing to the Seas one more time, I'm going to vomit. I saw look, I think that, I'm in the choir, I'm the choir master, I'm the organist or something. And I really, simple plain chant, I think would just change the scope of what we're doing here. And I would love to get your take. I'd love to get your opinion. And I'd love for you to implement this if possible. There's so many people in this church who are hungry for it. So let's have 2020 be the year that if you don't just, jump to the different ship and go Tridentine full stop, this is the year we really are seeing in real time Novus Ordo's changing. They're going back to tradition. Diocesan priests who just want to serve God in the best way that they know how, who are juggling parish life and their own spirituality at the same time, are realizing more and more, man, ad orientem changes the entire trajectory of the priest. Priests without fail, up and down. You know what they say? They say, when I do ad orientem, the pressure is taken off me. Because when it's versus populum, it's about the priest. It's about performing to an audience. But when the back is turned, it's not turning your back on the people. It is leading the people. You want your pilot to be facing the same way as your people when leading the plane. It's about having that deep connection with God intimately. And that needs to happen for the priest too. And so, again, part of laughter and war. But if your parish is going through something like that, if you want your parish to go through something like that, let this be the year that you talk to Father. Let this be the year that you get together people, put down names, signatures, affirmations, and say, listen, we would love a low Latin Mass. We love any Latin Mass. Yeah. We would love to bring back chant. Look, we'd love to use a choir loft. You know how many choir members would love to use a choir loft? even in your, it's hard to haul the drums up there, by the way, which is why.
This is the year you get rid of drums.
Yes.
At your parish.
Oh, we can only hope. Just burn them. Just burn around the center.
I have a horror story about that.
All right.
I was really involved at the last parish I was in. Mm-hmm. And I asked the priest there, I said, Father, I think we should bring the bells back. Because they signify the transubstantiation. At the epiclesis of the Mass, they signify something, and they help the people have an inward disposition to understand what's going on. And he said no, of course. And, a few months later, about a year or two later, what do I see in the parish choir? This man brings in a giant wind chime.
Wind chime?
And like bongo drums and all this stuff. And that's okay, but not tradition. I'm sorry, I'm feeling a little mad today about it, just reminiscing.
But you know what it is? This is why that kind of madness is good, because it's not just like being angry, but it is.
That's the aspect of war.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And we can't forget that has to be an aspect. We have no choice, people. Now it's war. Mm-hmm. And this is the year of confrontation. But that doesn't mean you have to do this with, just rage or anything.
Yeah.
Do it with Reese's. You got to do it with laughter. Mm-hmm. Because what's the reason for us to get mad? What are we getting mad for? Well, we're getting mad because we're seeing that our faith is being taken from us. Mm-hmm. Okay, and people aren't taking anything seriously anymore. Christ almost appears to be not present in the Mass anymore or in our personal life. So we have to make an effort. This is why 2020 is the year.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about resolutions, Jordan?
Ooh.
Are you a resolutions man?
I'm not really a resolutions man, believe it or not.
Yeah, I don't.
I like the concept, right? But I think that it's like this, right? It's like resolutions are good, but only if they're tangible. And oftentimes, if you try to change so many things about yourself in 1 year, you're not going to change anything. Master of all is master of none. Mm-hmm. So the answer for me is that you pick one really solid thing. So in the regular world, it's like this resolution, this New Year's, I want to go to the gym. Someone, and then they say, okay, and what that means, because you have to have an actual blueprint on something, is at least 2 times a week, I want to go to the gym. Mm-hmm. For how many long time, I don't know, but that's just what I want to do. And if you go, this year, I want to go to the gym and I want to skateboard down a pipe in Venice Beach, and I don't know how to skateboard, so I'm going to learn how to skateboard. Oh, and also I want to go parasailing over France. Oh, and also I want to do this
over France.
It's like that's all well and good, but it's like, know your human nature, know yourself. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, Now to tie that back, there are good resolutions. Like pick 1 or 2 good resolutions. And oftentimes what I like to do is pick a general life one. This year, I'd like to read more books, right? And then pick a good religious one. And between the 2 of those things, you should be, and they should be complementary to each other. I'll give an example of one, talking about laughter and war together, which is very important. And I think that, again, there are a lot of, the internet space is a wonderful thing. It's been a wonderful thing for tradition. But like anything, it can be a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. So if this is the year where you find yourself using tradition as a guise to, and obviously we brought up like both kind of fun criticisms and legitimate criticisms about the new mass and boomerism and all that kind of stuff. But it's like at the same time, we're not spiteful, hateful people. And tradition is never about spite or hate. And it's never been about spite or hate.
No.
And
it's about preserving.
It's about preserving. And it's not just about preserving, but people say, well, you guys are just, what is it? What's the quote now? It's like, it's not about preserving a museum.
No.
The answer is, of course, it's not about preserving a museum. In fact, what's funny about this is it's by going back that we go forward. This is the mass and this is the faith that converted the entire world. Mm-hmm. This is the one of saints and sinners alike. How wonderful that is. And you're a part of that. Chesterton says that tradition is a democracy of the dead. And so when you hear someone criticize smells, bells, and frills, and it's just all novelty, as you said, what's very funny is it's the complete polar opposite of novelty. To bring up Chesterton again, there's a story by him where he stumbles into the shop of Father Christmas. And Father Christmas replies that I'm dying, is what he says. It's kind of an old shop. It's a little cluttered with toys.
Is Father Christmas Santa Claus?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In the UK.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a non-Coca-Cola commercialized Santa Claus. He's like, really. And what's funny is though, so, Chesterton stumbles as a modern man stumbles in on Father Christmas, who says, I'm dying. And he looks over and there's Charles Dickens. And Santa looks up at Charles Dickens and says, I'm dying. And down the line it goes with very famous kind of figures. And what's funny is everyone goes, you were dying when I was here as modern man. Now, what does it mean? Well, it's simple. It means that the Catholic Church, as a church, the traditions, right? We say, oh, it's a 2,000-year-old tradition. What's funny about tradition is tradition always is old. It's never novel. It's never new. It has a feeling. And meanwhile, if you date yourself by bringing in modern things, quote unquote, and saying that this is the hip new way and this is the only way the church can survive, the church's reply is, no, because the church has always been dying. But see, I know it's a funny little concept to wrap your head around, but it's only by looking at it that way that you see how eternal Christ's church is. The priestly garments that have remained relatively unchanged with some modifications, obviously, for the past 2,000 years, but the core is the same, right? The Mass always ad orientem, always chant. We're singing hymns that go back as far as we can record them, even before musical notation was invented. And so the answer isn't that, well, we need to modernize. The answer is the church has never been modern. Even in the time periods where we say was the glory days of the church, even at the time of the Council of Trent, even at the time of St. Francis, even at the time of Christ himself, the church was always ancient. And there's something, and that's the power that draws us forward, is the fact that we can see the eternal that Christ has reflected, obviously, in the traditions of the church. Because they go on. So to my original point, this is the year that if you are just an online traditionalist and you use that as a weapon to just say that the barn's on fire and the horses are slaughtered and there's nothing you can do about it, get glad a little bit. I mean, come on, we're plugged into a 2,000-year-old history that's unchanging. There's not been a dogma of the Catholic Church that has changed. How surreal is that? The papacy is the oldest institution in the world. How surreal is that? And so, yeah, get happy, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, that brings a lot of comfort to me, to be honest, in a culture that's just constantly changing. One day it's this, and then the next day, oh no, that's not okay anymore.
One day I'm a boy, next day I'm a non-binary.
Exactly. I mean, it's always something new, and it's just stressful. I mean, I don't think people have a lot of peace nowadays. But to know that on Sunday or whatever day I have an opportunity to go to Mass, but mostly Sunday, because Sunday is a really special day for me.
Mm-hmm.
It has been. It has become a special day for me. To know that I'm going to experience Christ, literally. He's there in the Eucharist. That's so much peace of mind.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a 2,000-year-old thing that we're taking part of, but man, it feels brand new. Ever ancient, ever new.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right. You know, it's like there aren't, for the Eucharist, it's not insert X millions of masses that have been offered over the centuries. It is the same sacrifice.
Yep.
The same that happened at Calvary, the same that is happening on the altar every single day, and the same that will happen until Christ's second coming.
So if you're not getting that at your parish, if you're not realizing that, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And you have to either say something or, for goodness sakes, come and visit us.
Come and visit.
Come and
doors
visit
are
us.
open.
Doors
My
are
God.
open. Come hang out.
St. Vitus in San Fernando. I can't
It's
remember
the
our actual
best.
address, but
Home of the Latin Mass.
home
in LA.
of the Latin Mass in LA, and it's only going to get better from here. I have a resolution that I want to do, and I'm going to do it a small one, and you're going to laugh at me because it's a very small one, but you have to understand how proud I am of myself. Real quick. So this was the year that I learned the Ave Maria and the Pater Noster finally in Latin.
Cool.
And it only took me 2.5 years, which is okay, because if you think about this, if I had grown up my entire life in the Latin Rite, like, your kids are going to be doing this. They're going to be like, yeah, Dad, why are you weeping? I know the Ave Maria, obviously.
You want to know a pro tip?
Yeah.
If you sing it, it's easier to memorize.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. This is why music is so important, because you actually you learn more by music than just by repetition.
Yeah.
Repetition by music is the most important thing. So this year, I want to learn the Confiteor.
Oh, the Confiteor.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm 50% there.
Good.
You know, but just little parts of the Mass and part of our heritage.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I want to incorporate that into my spiritual life, because, you know, it's very funny when you start actually. Fun thing about the Mass, you know, the Mass really is, it's so beautiful. But what the Mass is, it's scripture. The actual words themselves are a lot of times are scripture woven in with the most beautiful, with the prayers of saints, like the most beautiful thing you could possibly imagine. It's unbelievable how much of that stuff is intertwined. Fun fact, by the way, Catholic Mass has more scripture in it than Protestants. You might think that's funny to believe, but I was listening to a Stephen Ray talk, and he was like, these are all just Bible verses. And I was like, yeah, they are. So point being is that more heritage about what the Mass is. And that starts for me with the Confiteor, because that's one of the most recognizable prayers, especially in the low Mass when you see it, but obviously in the high Mass too. And then I'm committing myself really authentically to joy. And so that might be a silly thing. We've been talking about that one for a little bit, but, you know, again, this is going to be a very tough year for the history of the church. These last 2 years, in particular, there's always been a tough time for the church. I'm actually not really a believer that there's ever a quote unquote golden era. Sometimes are way easier than others, and sometimes are way more difficult than others. These are dark days, but we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And so for the sake of your own souls, I'd like to make a plea that you don't take your eye off the prize. You know, when God comes to judge the living and the dead, there's not hate with him. It's that he sorts the wheat from the chaff and gets on with it. And so must we in our own lives. There's a lot of things to get mad about. And there are a lot of things that can scandalize the faithful and do scandalize the faithful and scandalize you and scandalize us. And it's very easy to go down that rabbit hole. And oftentimes, I'll give a pure flat out, but when you come to tradition, you're going to realize that your heritage has been essentially deprived from you. Centuries of heritage you have been deprived and lied about. You were always told that traditionalists were rigid and that they wore funny hats and funny little dresses and that they hated everybody. And you're going to go, well, that's not true at all. You always heard that traditionalists oppressed women and minorities and all this other kind of things. And that's not true at all. That, you know, it's only for a patriarchal cis white male kind of a thing, whatever you want to call it. And that's not true. And so, yeah, you're going to get mad. And then on top of that, you find out that, well, chant is beautiful. Why wasn't this in my own spiritual life? My sister, my brother, my friend is outside the faith. If they had only known about this, would not they have held on? And then before you know it, it cascades. Man, did you see what the Pope did today? Did you see the Vatican do today? Holy crud. Father Jim Rainbow stole down the road from me in this mass, all that kind of stuff. It's fun to poke fun at, and you should obviously pay attention to things because an informed Catholic is a good Catholic. But remember what we're fighting for. If you find yourself getting so unimaginably angry at all the terrors and horrors of the church, congratulations. Now you know what God deals with you personally on a daily basis. And yet he forgives and loves you, you know. Got a comment there, buddy?
No, I was thinking of a story that Fulton Sheen told of, I think he was saying something about Abraham welcoming a visitor, and the visitor, you know, he shows up out of the blue, and Abraham slaughters the fattest calf, you know, provides him the best tent, gives him everything that he needs, and the guy's not satisfied. And so after a few days of just repetitively just not being satisfied, he prays to God, and he says, God, I'm going to kick this guy out. And God says, look, I've been putting up with this guy for 50 years. You could put up with him for another few nights.
Classic sheet, huh?
Classic story.
I should ask you, do you have a resolution? I know you're not really into resolutions, as you say, but everyone has like a small little something of improvement or deprovement. I don't know. You do, yeah. You live your own truth.
No, I don't have a specific resolution, but I have been working on incorporating more forms of traditional piety into my life. This started many months ago. I stopped eating meat on Fridays. Now, we live in a diocese that allows you to have meat on Friday. You substitute it out with a different penance. Mm-hmm. But I've started to not do that. I've started to forego having meat and offer that as a sacrifice. Because when you sacrifice, it puts you in the frame of mind of Christ. Christ who sacrificed his life for us. You know, you kind of get just giving up meat on Friday, that's not that hard.
Yeah.
But it is just a tiny bit hard. You know, and that puts you in the right mindset, you know, puts you in the mindset of Christ. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing that. After communion, I've been going. There's a really beautiful prayer in my missal for after communion, so I've been doing that. And again, it puts you in the right mindset. So all of these traditional forms of piety, they direct your heart to a deeper devotion to Christ. A deeper devotion to Catholicism, a deeper relationship, you know. So I'm going to keep doing that. I don't know how I can gauge success, but I suppose one way that you could do it is whether or not you feel that because we're our worst critics, right?
Yeah.
You know, we might feel like, oh, I didn't do enough. I think one way that I could gauge that is to say, oh, okay, I'm trying the hardest that I can, mm-hmm. you know? And so I'm going to keep doing that this year. 2020 is going to be, it's going to be hard to beat 2019. 2019 has been the best year of my life.
So I've known you for a long time, since we were at the church down the road before St. Vitus. Yeah. So I got to tell you that personally, watching your whole growth in 2019,
I'm happier.
You are happier. And also, I mean, I still have the text. So for those that don't know, Rudy and I've known Rudy since I came to this town.
Yeah, it's like 3 years ago.
Yeah,
right?
4 years ago
4
now.
years ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we went to the same church right down the road. And he was heavily involved in it. And so when I left to go join the fraternity, where the fraternity was at the time, it was actually really, really heart-wrenching for me, because I had made all these very good friends and I didn't know how to talk to them about this. Part of that, I think, was my own kind of imagination running wild. But also, I know that can be a very difficult thing for someone who's going to tradition or coming to Catholicism just bar none. Everyone understands this, like that convert feeling of feeling alone. You found something that's beautiful and true. Never mind the beauty, but it's true also. And you can't even talk about it. How can you do it? And so what's funny is that I started going to St. Vitus, and Rudy started sniffing at it. And so I had a text once, and it was, hey bro, when are the mass times for St. Vitus? And I
remember that.
I almost died. And then you got a missal, and
the priest, he had this really old missal, and he's like, here, why don't you use it? It was like in tatters and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, this is kind of what it's like what I give to the new people, just so you could follow along.
Yeah.
Wonderful priest.
I'll never forget, there was one time, I don't know, we'd met each other. We met up somewhere, and we said goodbye to each other. And rather than just like a, hey, see you around, you looked at me and you said, I'll see you at mass. And I thought that was an extremely touching moment, because a friend from that I held very dearly and in high regards for was also kind of coming to his own journey. And so I've watched that in real time with you. I've watched you and your fiance come to forms of tradition, and it's been exciting. So 2019, I'm very happy, has been a very good year. It's part of the reason why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the coolest thing to think about. For me, 2019 was an absolute wonderful year to grow deeper into my faith, to meet the love of my life, to do some real serious cinematography. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm realizing more and more. So this is why it's like, at the end of the day, I'm completely understanding now, more so than ever at any time in my life, that everything that I have is because of God who's moved in my life.
Yeah.
And in a really radical way. And so for 2020, I just want to give what I can back to him. And so I didn't mean to get all sentimental there for a second, but it's it's true. Again, this is something that's happening all over. It's not isolated incidents, and we don't feel alone anymore. And that's really nice. I can't wait for the day where we don't say traditional Catholic. Sick of that adjective. Just Catholic. I maybe I've said this before on the show, but I can't wait for the day that our kids go, yeah, Dad, I went to mass. Yeah, of course it was Latin mass. Like, why do you why are you crying? Like, yeah, of course I was at grandma's, and we went to that weird mass down the road. Like, why is it like, I was like, okay, weird.
It's not like I would ever go there.
I'd ever go there. Like, you should have heard the music they were playing, Dad. Why are you high-fiving me? So yeah, let 2020, let God, again, stretch out your hand and let God lead you in 2020.
Yes, correspond to the grace that is just constantly being spilled over you by God. God is constantly giving you grace every single day, whether you know it or not. And you have an opportunity either to accept it or to reject it. But let it be this year that you really sit down and discern how God is moving in your life. And what graces is he genuinely giving you for you to grow in a deeper relationship with him, for you to get to know him a lot better, and grow in your spiritual life. Let it be this year. And if not, just understand that this is a lifelong thing. We're going to be talking about the same things in 2021. Because why? Because this is our life. We're trying to perfect ourselves here on earth, and we're doing everything that we can to make that happen, so that we can share an eternity with God. So never forget that on this pathway that we have of life, that we need to have both laughter and war. It's always going to be those two things. It's always going to be laughter and war.
You know what the difference between 2020 and 2021 is going to be?
1 year.
Yeah, we're going to be married, bro. But not to each other, because forget that.
2021, I think I would like to have more laughter and be a father. You got really quiet there. Are you nervous?
I'm kind of... Oh gosh, I can't wait for... like 50 episodes from now. Hey, welcome back to the Glad Chad podcast marriage episode. Yes! Oh, it's going to be out. Oh gosh. Being a parent's so hard. It's so hard. Yeah, God did it. God bless him.
All right. Well, if we're gonna get mad, I just want to say that you pissed me off.
Oh, I pissed you off
because you showed me the most degenerate video I've ever seen in my life.
I mean,
I kind of wish that I had never seen that. The whole time I was looking at it.
Did I scandalize you, dear boy?
It wasn't scandal. It was more of just shock and disbelief.
So
how far we've fallen as a culture.
Show on this doll what Uncle Jordan showed you.
I don't know if you guys have seen this before, but what's the show called?
So it's Barcroft TV.
Barcroft TV?
Yeah, it's a YouTube channel.
That's weird.
Yeah, well, obviously.
Well, it opens up with this weird graphic that says "Love doesn't judge." Is that what it said?
It says "Love don't judge."
Love don't judge.
Yeah, which means you're in for a good treat.
Man, you're in. Yeah, you're in for something.
What are we loving, Rudy?
Well, it's this weird polyamorous relationship. I don't recommend you go and look for it. Just
I do.
Our explanation is enough. It's this weird house in Florida where there's 4 guys who look like neckbeards.
They one of the comments said this is what Reddit manifested looks like,
or like GameStop employees or something. But it's 4 guys who are in this polyamorous relationship with this girl. What are they, like 20 years old or something?
She's apparently 20.
She's 20. I don't know about.
But neckbeards don't have an age. They just
30.
wither away. Yeah.
They're like eternally 30.
That's right.
And somehow they all are in this relationship, and she's pregnant with one of the guys. What is this?
So let me explain just a little bit. They are in a polyamorous relationship, but here's the thing. They're not in a polyamorous relationship with each other collectively. They are all in relationship with the woman. So as one of them described it, she is the wheel and they are the spokes. But it's only a one-way street for each. I know.
This is peak degeneracy.
This is peak degeneracy. Peak. And so, yeah, so what happens is essentially like, I guess that they all live in the house together. All the boyfriends like interact, like they all play video games together. And apparently there's a lot of jealousy. And so she's pregnant.
It's also very sad.
Yeah,
at the core of it, it's
very like sad. It's a video that you watch and you don't you want to get mad, but really you just get tired. You know, when you wake up, I feel like an old man sometimes. You wake up and you're just like, you know what? Like these kids in their polyamory. It's degeneracy, but it's the worst kind. So she's like, and I'm this poor child, right? So life is always good because life always comes from God. And we would be fortunate if we have our children be born in the best of situations, which is just not the history of the world. But there are some situations you can prevent. Like if I was a dude's father, okay, here's another thing too. They all are like, we're all gonna like, yeah, sometimes we get all jealous, but like, we're all gonna love this baby and like raise it as our own. So like,
oh, he said something really cringe about having like an endless loop of go ask your dad. That is so cringe, man.
Dude, I think...
Come on.
This is a video of actual cucks. Because actually, like, not even just, like, the derogatory, like, the general term. This is actually, like, a legit case. Because technically speaking, the guy 1 is being cucked by guy 2, who's being cucked by guy 3. Oh,
it's literally, it's both literal cuckery and...
Tom cuckery.
The figurative way of saying, oh, that guy's a cuck. It's just that. To the extreme. I don't think you could ever top that.
You know, here's a saving grace about this video. So Rudy says don't watch it.
You think there's a saving grace?
There is a saving grace. You're not going to believe this. It makes me want to be monogamous even harder.
Okay. All right, that's good.
Like I'm going to call Jen after this and I'm going to say, not only are you the only woman for me, but like I'll kill any other woman I see.
What is with you and killing people, dude?
What did I ever say? Killing others?
You said you could kill your wife.
I said the Catholic. It's true.
Catholics, kill your wife.
There's no word for divorce in Catholicism.
Hey, you guys, I'm actually being held accountable.
Damn it, Rudy! Don't tell him. So anyway, yeah, it's a cursed video, isn't it?
It's cursed. Yeah,
but you know what's unfortunate? This is makes me want to cry. There are now articles speaking of polyamory, which says this. Here's the question. What is the best Christmas present you could have gotten your lovely fiance?
Well, I got Ashley a tea set, and she loved it.
No, she did it, my dude. The best thing you could have given that girl was a cheat pass.
A cheat pass?
A cheat pass.
With like a celebrity or?
No, man. With like one of these cucks in the video.
That's horrible, man.
That's true, but there are articles about this now, right? I think like it's either HuffPost or Salon that had an article about this. The point being is this. Look, degeneracy is garbage. But at least you realize, sometimes you gotta sit back and go, wow, I could be a lot worse.
Wow, I'm normal.
Wow, I'm normal. It's like, what? Oh, shit. I want to say I'm sorry for showing you that.
Yeah.
But I'm...
It's one of those things I'll forget.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
Well, unfortunately, the taste is going to be washed out of the mouth with something worse. There's always something worse.
Yeah. Yeah, there is always something worse. Especially on we're on some ass posting boards. There's always something new coming out.
Always something new, dude.
So
you ever get tired, Rudy?
Yeah.
You ever just get...
I have to stop looking at that stuff.
Dude, that's another New Year's resolution. I love our Facebook boards, but I've realized two things. Number one, it is not the thing to look at in the morning because you'll get mad. And number two, some people are just so whiny.
Yeah.
They're so whiny about nothing.
It's funny too is that there's some people that like somehow took a wrong turn and they ended up there. And it's like, wait a minute, you're in the wrong place, my friend. You picked
the wrong town, friend.
We don't take kindly to you.
That's right. They're like, wait, you guys are actually mocking this? You're like, there it is.
Boy.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to the Glad Trad podcast. This is our New Year's episode, so Happy New Year's to you and your family. If you liked what we had to say, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell and we'll teach you how to get free V-Bucks without using your mom's credit card, all that kind of crap. Please also, we would love if you could share this, of course. We are still obviously growing our community, and all your feedback has been wonderful and greatly appreciated so far. And thank you so much for all those who keep tuning in and listening to our thoughts and comments. And so, yeah, we would love to hear from you always. If you're on YouTube, you can leave a comment, and also you can send any questions you might have to gladtradpodcast@gmail.com, and we can go ahead and start answering stuff because now we're just at that size. We could take a question or two if we wanted to.
Yes, shoot us a question. We would love to answer it. And for all of our friends or subscribers, thank you very much. Happy New Year. And we're going to tune out.
Adios. God bless you.
God bless you. Bye.